Okay, Dennis Young here, Primitive Substance, very special guest, Nick Magnus, keyboard wizard, played with Steve Hackett, has his own solo music. So, Nick, thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. So, let's hear about some of your early days, when you got involved with playing keyboards and how this evolved into synthesizers.
Oh, it's a fairly long evolution, really.
Um,
It all probably started when I was about 4 years old
okay.
in nursery school, and I couldn't, they couldn't get me off the piano,
Oh,
and my mother decided that I should have piano lessons, so I went and had piano lessons, and they were awful. To begin
okay.
with, I had a real harridan of a teacher. She was dreadful, but things got better. Better teachers after that. But I suppose my route into synthesizers really started with the Tornadoes and Telstar.
Oh,
You
okay.
know that piece.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
always, I was really fascinated with what that instrument was that
Oh,
was playing. I thought, well, it's not an organ. I don't know what it is. And it was many years later when I found out what it was. It was a Selmer clavioline. But I didn't know that. But I was just fascinated with a keyboard that could make sounds that were not a piano. And
okay.
so I got interested in harpsichord as well. I love the sound of harpsichords. Um, but synthesizers really took off for me when Wendy Carlos brought out
Oh, yeah. Switch on
switched on
Bach.
switched on Bach,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
and also a time before that as well. In the BBC during the daytime, before daytime television was a thing like it is
Right.
now. During the day, they used to show schools programs, and they had a lot of electronic music, which was all made by the BBC Radiophonic Workshop.
Oh,
In particular, a chap called Paddy Kingsland. He did all of the stuff that he did was
might
the
have
stuff
heard
I
of her.
found
Okay.
I liked. And then I found that there were albums of this stuff that you could buy, and then other albums by oh gosh, what's his name, Jean-Jacques Perry and Gershon Kingsley. They did sort of cover versions of well-known tunes done on synthesizers,
Mm.
and that kind of got me hooked. But it was Wendy Carlos that really did it for me, and the obsession went from there. Really, my first electric keyboard that I got, well, portable electric keyboard, was a Wilson President organ, which was
Oh,
a strange beast. Um, but I decided I wanted to get a bit more rock and roll than that, so I got rid of that and had a Hohner Pianette.
oh, okay.
The Pianette N, not the T, but the N.
Okay.
The one the Zombies used it a lot. She's Not There by the Zombies.
Right.
Yeah, that's a Hohner Pianette.
Oh, okay.
I fell in love with that sound and found out what it was, and bought one, and then it kind of grew from there. I got an RMI electric piano, and then a Fender Rhodes, and then
Oh, just kept going on, right?
it snowballed from there.
Now, did you play in cover bands if at first, or were you just doing
Um,
original music?
Both. It was the first band I was in at school.
Okay.
We played a selection of things. We did some cover tunes, and
Right.
we also tried writing our own as well. Not very well, I have to say. It's pretty terrible. But we were very adventurous with the cover things we did. We did Court of the Crimson King, Yours
Oh,
Is No
really?
Disgrace,
Oh, oh,
and stuff like
wow.
that. So yeah, we tried to be a bit more kind of sort of sophisticated than your average school's cover band.
Huh.
Um,
That was a very breakthrough record in the Quarter of Crimson King. I think it really set the tone for a lot of progressive music. That was such an incredible record.
yeah, it was, but it didn't it didn't really sound how it should have done back at the day. Played on a
Hmm.
Wilson President organ, not quite the same as a Mellotron, really, but
Well,
not the
you could
same
still
effect,
get
I think.
close. I mean, not everybody could get a Mellotron, so
Well, not when you're 17, no.
no, I'm sure. So the big question is, how did you meet Steve Hackett? I mean, that's a really amazing connection there.
Well, yeah, it's the story of pure chance. I'm sure I've told this story before, but the band I was in at the time, in 1977, 78, it
Right.
was a progressive rock instrumental band called Autumn.
Okay.
And we did a few gigs, not, mostly kind of in the local area. And we decided we wanted to expand our horizons a bit, so we put an advert in. The colleges and universities had a magazine called Circuit Magazine, which they sent out to all the socials.
Uh-huh.
The social secretaries of all the colleges had this magazine, and it was basically bands advertising themselves. And so we decided to stick an advert in
Hmm.
one issue of this. And when it came out, they were monthly, so you had
A month of
but
that.
that was a phone call coming in. Sorry.
That's okay.
um, he's gone. Whoever it was, it's probably a junk call anyway. Um, they So your advert basically had a month life to it, and then the next issue, you were gone after that if
Hmm.
you put another one in. But when the magazine came out, it just happened to coincide with when our phone was cut off because we couldn't pay the
Oh.
bill,
Hmm.
and our phone was cut off for a month. By the time it was
Oh.
reconnected, that issue of the magazine was history. And if anyone ever
Oh.
did try and call us, we never knew about it. So we were all getting a bit depressed and decided we made a mutual agreement that if any of us wanted to find another band, um, and I put an advert in a Melody Maker, which was I don't know if you know that, it was a music paper, a weekly music paper, which had classified ads in the back, and
Right.
that was the place that bands advertised. Every
I'm
band,
sure.
big and small, advertised in Melody Maker and scoured its pages to look for new members. And my advert came out, and the phone number was wrong. The 2 digits were the wrong way around,
Oh boy.
and I wasn't best pleased. So I got in touch with them and said, "Can you put it in again?" And
Hmm.
they said, "Oh, yeah, well, it'll come out in 2 weeks' time." So 2 weeks later, it came out again with the correct phone number, and that
Hmm.
was the advert that Steve saw,
Oh boy.
the
That's
reprint.
something.
If they got it right the first time, I wouldn't have put it in again. He'd have never seen it,
That is really something.
and I'd have been working in a supermarket probably. So
Oh man.
there we
That's
go.
that's
It's
a quite a story.
a real tale of chance, that.
Well, you need a bit of luck to sometimes get these gigs. Like that's what Steve Hackett did too. He looked at Melody Maker and got
Yeah,
the Genesis gig.
yeah. It was a fantastic paper, and it's just a shame that there's nothing quite the same now. I know you've got the internet, but for some reason it doesn't seem to work in the same way.
No, I'm glad you're not. And
No,
this is one of my all-time favorite records,
yeah.
Spectral Morning. Every song is great. I listen to this day and night. I mean, it's got to be my top five progressive music records.
Oh,
And what
good
was
to
it
know.
like recording that record?
A lot of fun. I mean, it was a great experience for me, because it was my first sort of real voicemail keeps going off. Um, it was my real first grown-up long trousers recording experience with a seriously good musician, and I was in heaven
I imagine.
throughout the whole process. And it was a lot of fun because we did it in a studio in Holland,
Oh,
Phonogram's own studio in Hilversum.
right.
We tended to work at night times, sleep in the day, work at night, and it was just a wonderful sort of playful atmosphere for the whole thing.
Yeah, I
And
saw
just done.
some of the videos of you guys live. It was wow, intense band. You guys were really on fire.
Oh, we rehearsed a lot. We did a lot of rehearsal before that first tour.
Mm.
I joined in August of 1978.
Oh, okay.
And August, September, October. I think it was 2 months before we actually did our first gig in Oslo.
Oh,
So we were pretty well rehearsed by then. But it just helps having really great musicians in the band. I mean, everybody was really on the case.
was Pete Hicks in the band at that time?
He was,
Oh,
yes,
he was a great singer.
yes,
Loved his voice.
yeah, he was and still is.
And you had a lot of keyboards. What were you using back then? Did they give you a whole array of new keyboards to work with when you joined?
Well, I had a rig of my own, four keyboards of my own. I had Fender Rhodes piano,
Right.
Holy Clavinet D6, and a Korg Mini Korg 700S synth,
Oh, okay.
and a Vox string machine. Well, it's what later became the Logan String Melody, but it was branded as a Vox back then. That's what I joined with, and Steve he'd got the Novatron.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. I'll ask you about that. Yeah, that's a unique
yeah,
instrument.
yeah, he got the Novatron, and he got a Roland SH2000, and what was the other thing? Oh yes, and a Roland RS202 string machine, which
Wow.
which I never used that live. It was sort of there, but it never had any use, and I never really liked it very much. In fact, all it seemed to be good for was doing accordion sounds, and so it does appear on Spectral Mornings
Right, right.
on oh, I think it's Tiger Moth. It does the accordion sound on Tiger Moth.
Yeah, there were some just great songs on here. I mean, every day, the ballad of the of decomposing man. I mean, it's just every song is so unique.
Yeah.
And then you did the Factor, right?
But yes, we did Defector after that.
That's a good
Um,
record too.
yeah, I really like Defector, and the keyboard rig started to grow a bit more. Then I got another RMI piano because I love those things. I
Right.
know some people hate them, but I absolutely love them. And a Mini Moog and a vocoder, a Roland vocoder, Prophet 5, Jupiter 8,
Oh my gosh.
all sorts of stuff.
Now, were you touring with all these keyboards, or was it
Yeah,
just wow?
yeah. At one stage, I had 11 on stage.
Oh my
That,
gosh!
that was
Wow.
the biggest compliment. I had a memory Moog on top of that. Um, oh, it was a lot of stuff.
I
Uh,
can imagine. And
but it
then
was great because,
and you toured. Did you tour the U.S. at all?
yes, we did. We did
That's what
two,
I thought.
1980 and 1981. We did two tours.
Okay.
But we did. It tended to be kind of around the edges of it. We're starting in the northeast. I think our first gig in the States was in Boston,
Okay.
and then sort of going down the east coast along the bottom, and then up the west coast.
Oh my
We
gosh.
didn't tend to play in the middle. We did Chicago. That's the most sort of middleish part of it, but we tended to ignore the rest of the middle for some
Oh,
reason. I don't
okay.
know why. And we also ventured up to Buffalo and Syracuse and Canada. Of course, we did Canada.
That's a lot of playing. I mean, especially you must have had a big help there. Did you have a big tour group to set up all this equipment, or I'm sure you did, right?
Yes, we had a really good road crew,
That's good.
this road crew, and truckers and lighting guys. I mean, it was for the time, it was quite a big setup.
Yeah, I like that song "Clocks." Did you do that live?
Oh yeah, many times,
Oh, I love that song.
many times.
That is
Because
just really happening.
yeah, because people used to say when they had the record, because obviously the record of it came out before we toured it, and people would say they didn't believe that John Shearer had played all that drum solo at the end in one go. That he thought that everyone said, oh, he must have overdubbed it, but he didn't.
No,
And
he's
when he played it
fantastic
live,
drummer.
when he played it live, it was, there you go. Look, he really could do it.
Now, was Steve's brother playing in the band at the time?
Yes, he was
Oh,
always.
he was really talented too.
Yeah, John was always there. So he did flute and additional guitar and bass pedals.
Oh, wow. I love those bass pedals. Did he have the Moog? Did he have those Moog bass pedals at that time?
Yeah, the original Mark I Taurus, which are the best sounding ones.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
and Dick Cadbury also had a set. So we had 2 sets of bass pedals. So when John was playing the
what a
flute or
sound
guitar.
you guys must have had.
Yeah.
Too bad I missed those tours. I wish I would have saw you guys live at that point. So you played like 11 years with Steve? Is that was the run?
Yes, we worked together up until the end of, just about the end of 1989, I think.
Okay.
The last tour that we did was 1984.
Okay.
So there was a period, a 5-year period where we weren't playing live, but we were still recording stuff.
And what was the last record you did with Steve?
It was one that it came out a few years after, or several years after it was made. It was an album called Feedback 86.
Oh, okay.
And we actually recorded it in about 1986, and it never came out until I don't know, probably the 90s, sometime in the 90s. I'm not quite sure why it took so long to appear. But we were constantly recording bits and pieces, and I was doing. I did some of the initial workouts for what became Guitar Noir.
Oh, okay. Right, I know that record.
So I do appear in a few places on that record, not many, but obviously Steve has substantially developed them further when he actually did the record for real. So
what an experience you must have had. That must have been really something.
It was great times.
He's such a special player, the way he has that technique with the way he uses the fretboard with his fingers, and he's still doing it. I mean, he's still playing.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they tour endlessly. I don't know how they fit it all in.
I don't know how they do it. I really don't. But some of these artists, they never grow old. They just seem to get better with age.
Yeah.
So then you did some session work, right? After this with, I see George Martin. Did you do stuff with and Brian May? Is that some of the work you did?
Oh yeah. Well, that was all in the 80s.
Okay.
The session work kind of tailed off in the 90s because lots of different reasons. But the kind of peak of it was in the 80s, and so some of the jobs were just sort of small things. Others were more involved.
Right.
Like the George Martin thing, for example, was doing pre-productions for a Jose Carreras album.
Oh, okay.
The opera singer. So it was quite funny because George turned up. He turned up here with the whole family. He turned up with Judy and Giles and the dog.
Oh, that's funny.
And Judy and Giles and the dog went and sat in the garden while we were working. And he came up here, and we were, programming. Basically making tempo maps and just general pre-programming before the sessions. But he came 2 days in a row, and I thought it was quite funny because he parked his Bentley outside the house.
Oh, that's funny.
And I was thinking all the neighbours across the road were twitching their curtains going, who's that Bentley?
Who's that, right? What rock star is in there, right? That's funny. Now, did you do it at his studio or was it at Abbey Road?
Air. We went and actually transferred what we'd done. We went into Air, not Air Lyndhurst, but the Air that was in Oxford Circus at the time.
Got it.
I don't think it's there anymore. And I think Air Lyndhurst is the only iteration of Air that exists now.
What an experience. Now, you worked with Richie Havens too, right?
With Steve, yes. There was a day a day we spent with Richie recording. I'm not even quite sure what happened to that. But we all just sat down in the studio and recorded something, and just for a day. It was a nice day.
He's a very unique player. Very great voice. I think he spent the rest of his life in New York, I think, after that. I
Mm.
assume that's what happened to him. I don't know. So then let's talk about all your solo music. I mean, you've done 7 records,
Yeah.
and now you have this new one, A Strange Inheritance. I got a chance to listen to it. It really is majestic. And then you have these beautiful vocals, Steve a part of it. You know, you're still connected with some of the people, which is nice.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had John Hackett's been on it. Steve has been on most of them.
Oh,
Pete's
that's
been on
great.
a fair few. Um, yeah, it's nice to keep the old connections going, and it's always a joy to have any of them on there.
Now, this is all recorded at your home studio at
Yeah,
your house.
this is where we are. Yeah,
There it is.
yeah. There we go.
And now you don't need all these number of keyboards anymore, right? It's a lot of
Just
it's on your computer.
just the one.
Isn't that
it,
something?
it does everything. Well,
That is amazing.
it controls everything else, basically. Yeah,
So all the programs are on your computer, and then you just
yeah,
play it through. Wow,
yeah, yeah.
it does sound great. Very full sound.
Oh, great, thank you.
Now, do you put these out just on digital, or do you also have physical releases
Um,
of these records?
oh, I am a huge proponent of physical media,
Right.
so I've only ever put things out on CDs. Um, I don't do vinyl because I can't afford to. It's just too
I
expensive.
agree with that. I
It,
can't either.
it's horrendously expensive, and also there's another problem with, or a couple of problems with doing it on vinyl. A major one is that the format and lengths of the albums don't work on vinyl because of the lengths of the tracks. There's no
Right.
way to divide it up to make even sides where, you'd have to cut tracks in half. And of course, there's no way I'm going to do that.
Right.
Um, and this last one, in Strange Inheritance, I don't think it would fit on vinyl anyway. It's just a bit too long. It's not long enough to be a double, but just too long to be a single one. And the other reason is that when you're mastering for vinyl, you have to be very careful with the bass end. You have to make sure that below a certain frequency, it really needs to be in mono. Because if it's stereo, there's a phase. You get problem with the phase, and the needle. The needle just doesn't know which way to jump, and
Oh, okay.
so it does. It just jumps. So you have to mono all your bottom end. And I like
Oh,
using stereo bass sounds. I think they're they're an integral part of the whole soundscape. Big wide stereo synth sounds.
right.
Um, I'm not going to mono those just for the sake of vinyl. It's just compromising the music. So no vinyl for me.
And then where you're going to get stuck if you can't find a distributor, you're stuck with a whole box of 100 pieces of vinyl that nobody wants. Or I
But,
mean, that's the
but I'm
problem. There's
talking,
so much out there.
yes, and vinyl that's cost you a fortune to have made.
Right.
So, but I did make a move quite recently, a couple of months ago. I decided that to go kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I thought I don't, I don't like streaming. I really hate the idea of streaming
Mm.
things like the dreaded Spotify, where you get no money from it at all. You'd have to have
No.
millions and millions of streams just to earn a couple of £100, and it's lining somebody else's pockets. And just on principle, I don't want to do that. But I did decide to release. So far, I've put four
Right.
albums on Bandcamp, which are which people can buy as digital downloads, um, and that's fine. That's okay. I really don't mind doing that. I mean, people get an opportunity to listen through to it a couple of times to decide whether they want to buy it or not. Um, but that's fine. But it costs money to make these albums.
It does. It absolutely does. It's not
It
worth
really
it if
does.
you're not going to have a big distribution network that somebody's going to definitely say, okay, when this is out, I'm going to take so and so records. It's
Yeah,
just a losing proposition.
Yeah, you try and make a living out of music, and you just don't want to give it away. And
Right.
it's expensive. This last album, Strange Inheritance, it was the most expensive album to date to make, and I probably won't break even on it, even with the selling the CDs directly. But that's not why we make music. Ultimately,
I think unless you're doing shows, I mean, I don't see any point in putting a
no.
physical product out unless you're going to be playing and selling this at concerts.
Yes, and that's the other thing. It is playing live. That is also an extremely expensive thing to do.
Exactly.
You've got a whole band to find. You've got to pay them to rehearse, to learn everything. You've got to spend many months. Well, I would have to spend many months preparing my part of it. I'd need at least 2 other keyboard players to do all
Right.
the various parts. You need all the lights and the PA and the trucking, and that you're talking ridiculous amounts of money.
Yeah,
And
I don't put out any more vinyl records. I got burned in 2021. I was promised a distributor to put it out to take some, and then it was late
yeah,
because of COVID, and I just have been sitting on all these records. So that's what
that's a real
happened.
shame. Yeah.
After that, I said digital only, and you hope people find it. But there's so much music out there now. I mean, it's just
Oh,
but
it
there's
really
still
is.
a lot of bands out there. But I guess you have to play live to really get the big exposure for physical product.
I suppose so. Well, you'd have to, yes, you'd be needing to sell it at the shows,
Right.
having a merch stall and basically have quite a lot of different merch, t-shirts and mugs and baseball caps and whatever,
Right.
to try and break even. I know, a lot of people say that if it wasn't for the merch that they sell, then they just wouldn't be able to afford to tour at all.
Have you seen Steve play live with his new band?
Many times.
Great. They are really
And
great. I've seen them a couple of times.
It's an incredible show. It really
It
is. Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Roger King is like he's phenomenal.
He is. He is. I couldn't do what he's doing, to be honest.
Yeah, he is something. Now I got a chance to see this band, the Musical Box. Have you heard of them?
I have, yes.
If you get a chance, they're coming to the UK in the spring. I got a chance to see them in December, and they are really incredible, copying the Genesis show.
Yeah. There's a number of good Genesis tribute bands. There's two. Well, Tony Patterson, who sings on my stuff.
Okay.
He's has been, well, I think they've disbanded now for about the 3rd time. He was in a band called Regenesis, who were
Okay.
really, really good. Very, very good. And there's another one called G2, who specialize more in the later period of Genesis, the more kind of pick of the tail onwards and into Duke and Abacab and all of that. Whereas Regenesis focus more on the earlier days, Nursery Crime, Foxtrot, Selling England, and all of that.
Oh, great. Well, Musical Box is actually carrying around a real Mellotron, which I was really shocked. Now they're getting the Mellotron from Genesis from the Nursery Crime era. Now,
The actual one?
yes, I talked to this gentleman Ian, who's in the band a few weeks ago. It's amazing. They have a guy on a 24/7 tech who is keeping this stuff running, but I don't know how they carry that on tour.
It's a big job. I mean, we used to tour with the Mellotron, well, Novatron.
Oh, you did?
Same thing. And it was it on the whole it behaved fine, but there was a period where we had special effects. The early tours, when we did Shadow of the Hierophant, we had a snow machine up on the top of the ring. And when Shadow of the Hierophant came, then the snow came down, and that caused the problem because it was very, very fine pieces of polystyrene, and it was highly statically charged. So
my gosh,
it would find its way into the Mellotron. I don't know how it got in there, and it would stick to the tapes.
Oh
So every
boy!
now and
So
then
when you pressed the note, it didn't work or something, or just
well, you get little
fall
bumps
through?
and hiccups and things when a piece of
Oh
polystyrene went over the
man!
playback head. But worse than that, on later shows, we had an oil-based smoke machine,
Right.
um, which I used to love the smell of it because it always reminded me of model railways. You know, when you get model steam
Oh
trains,
yeah,
when
yeah.
you put some oil in the funnel, and then when you run it, the smoke comes out of the funnel. And it had a
Oh
particular
right,
smell,
right.
and this oil machine has had the same smell. But the big problem was it being gaseous. It found its way into the mellotron, and it covered the tapes. Then it started building up this oily layer on the tapes. And what would happen is that because the mellotron has only 8-second tapes in it, when you
Right.
got to the end, you'd be playing a chord and you get to the end of the tape. Normally, you have this technique with the mellotron where what you call the spider technique, where you give the appearance of a chord continuously playing by just cycling the notes one by one and hoping that
Right.
you don't notice one drop out for a moment and then restart.
Oh
But
boy.
when you got to the end of the tape, you'd let go of the keys, play again, and nothing would happen
Oh,
because the things were stuck on the end. The tape, the glue from the smoke had kind of formed a glue with the oxide on the tape, and it was just stuck.
so no,
And so
no, the notes wouldn't go.
no, so
Oh
what we ended up
boy.
having to do was Steve's guitar roadie would sit behind the mellotron because I had it facing the back of the
Right,
stage.
right.
He could sit behind the mellotron out of sight with the back off. And as I was playing, he
Oh,
would be rewinding the tapes by hand,
oh my gosh.
putting them back. It's ridiculous.
I don't
So,
think that instrument was ever meant to play live. I think everybody, just to get the effects, but it seemed like always something would happen.
yes, they were, yeah. But as I say, on the whole, it behaved very well once we abandoned the smoke and the snow.
Right.
It always behaved fine. But I was a bit nervous of it at the end. Began to sort of worry that it might misbehave too many times, and so in the end I abandoned it and just said, "Can I just use do you mind if I just use synths instead to do those sounds?"
Right, right.
And
Now, did you end up keeping those instruments, or did you sell them? The ones that you use with Steve, are they you still have them?
um, the ones that Steve had, I owned. I'm not sure where they are. They're probably locked away in storage somewhere.
Right.
But my own ones, which was the majority of them by the time we got to the end of it, they're all history now. They all got sold off over the years, um, either because I either got bored with them or more likely I just was desperate in desperate need of the money. That's usually what.
Right. Yeah. Imagine. And
Yeah.
these vintage keyboards now have really gone up in price.
Oh, silly money now. I
It
mean,
is.
even if I had the room to have them, because it's only a small studio, even if I had the room and the money, I wouldn't buy a vintage synth because they're old now and they need constant attention and things go wrong. I've got a couple of old instruments downstairs which are just out of commission because they've just the capacitors have gone or the
Right.
batteries leaked and leaked over the motherboard and it's gone poof. Uh, it's just more trouble than it's worth. And the thing that I'm really happy with now is having all of that old gear that I used to have. I've got it all in software now.
That's great.
It
Yeah.
doesn't take up any room. It's total recall. You call the project back and it all comes back exactly as you left it. And in many ways, the software versions of the instruments perform better. They have more facilities on them. Like a Jupiter 8, for example, only 8-voice polyphonic. But if you've
Okay.
got forgotten the name of it, Arturia. Yes,
Oh,
Arturia will
right,
do a
right.
Jupiter 8V. You can have 16 or 32 voices on that. You know, you're not restricted in the same way. So there are definite advantages.
You don't hear a difference. It sounds great. I mean, it still has that. You still have
And
that great quality on those new records.
and to be honest, to me, they sound every bit as good as the original thing.
Yeah.
That's the whole argument in itself, and I'm sure a whole load of people would at this point will now be shouting at the screens.
Right.
They don't. But you know, I think, you know, 99.9% of the listening audience don't know or particularly care how you achieved something. If it sounds good, that's all that matters. It's the end is the important thing, not the means. So whatever your sort of ideals are, kind of they're not really relevant.
Right. It's true. So, what do you think of the current state of digital music and music in general in this current environment? Do you see any positive signs that we're going to keep going with artists like yourself and Steve that people will want to listen to?
Oh, well, we can only hope.
That's
basically.
it. That's true.
Well, I progressive rock, and all of the, you know, sort of similar related things around it, they're not a dirty word anymore. Remember when back in the 80s, when you know, the early 80s, when punk took over and progressive rock was the thing that the music that dare not speak its name. It's not like that anymore. I think there's room for all sorts of music. There's room for every genre, and I hope they will always continue to be.
I think so. I mean, there's a group of people that still love this music that you make and Steve makes, and they're searching for it.
Yeah, and it's a big group as well. It's a lot more people than everybody thinks.
Yeah, and I think that the vinyl explosion that happened, there's still these musos, I call them, that keep looking for new music and love vinyl music. So it's still relevant.
Yeah.
Going forward. Now, I don't know what this AI development, what that's going to do, but I don't know. It's so much moving. Everything's moving so fast.
Yeah.
It seems like every month there's something new invention. Like when we were younger, it took like years for things to develop. Now it's like nothing. We've got such advancement.
Yeah, it's like inventions looking for a market in a way.
Right.
You know, it's things that people didn't know they needed, but they want them. But they could have gotten them along perfectly well without them.
And I think the attention span was very short because there's so much to look at with the social media. I think people don't feel like they have time to sit down and listen to an entire record like the way it's planned out.
Yeah.
I mean, I still do, but I don't think it's as much.
No. Well, it can be quite discouraging looking at the stats. Like on my YouTube channel, I've got, you know, a number of promo videos across the various albums. And if you look at the stats and to see, you know, how people have engaged with them, and it shows you people who, you know, the number of partial views, the number of full views, and the number of skips.
Right.
And it's quite upsetting when you see the number of skips there are, when people have just sort of played 10 seconds and just gone, nah.
That's it.
And you just go,
like, you know, I don't know how to get more subscribers. You know, it's growing slowly, but you know, I thought there'd be like a bigger audience. I've done 100 of them already with really some very interesting artists. So maybe YouTube just says, you know, you still have to keep going until they figure out other people want to listen. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to keep doing them.
Yeah, that's the thing.
With it. That's all.
Yes, just do it. Do it because you love it.
Right.
That's the thing.
One other thing I wanted to mention is there is a gentleman outside of Philadelphia. He's got this huge warehouse, he's got these amazing synthesizers in there. You know, all this vintage stuff. If you ever get out to the States again, I don't know if you've traveled here in New York, Pennsylvania area, but I would make a trip out there. He's got every vintage imaginable synthesizer, and they work on them to make them work again.
Yeah, that's Drew Raisin, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, I saw that video
Amazing.
on your channel. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got it's
unbelievable
fantastic.
collection. Yeah.
Oh, the CS Yamaha 80. He's got every imaginable old string keyboard. He's got the Keith Emerson Moog.
Yeah.
So I've been there twice now, and every time it's just fascinating. He's got every Moog available that came out all the way to the present.
Yeah.
So I don't know where he gets the money for this, but I guess he's going to turn it into eventually a museum.
I think he should. Is it open to the public?
Yeah.
It is open to the public. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess by invitation.
By invitation. Yeah.
By invitation now, I'm sure you could go see it if you were here. You just have to. I think he's letting musicians in that he knows that would like the tour of it, but fascinating how he's been able to buy all this stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I probably want to spend more than one day there.
Right, of course. So what's planned for the 2025, Nick? Are you going to put out more records?
I haven't started working on the next one yet because I've got a planned studio move afoot.
Oh, okay.
So until that's done, I'm not starting anything new. So hopefully by the summer I'll be ensconced in a new studio.
So where can all the listeners mostly find your music? On Bandcamp? Is that the main source of your records?
For people want to listen, there's two places you can go. Bandcamp. There's four albums are up there at the moment.
Okay.
Hexameron, Children of Another God, Catharsis, and The Strange Inheritance are all up there at the moment.
Right.
And so yeah. I mean, you get the opportunity to play things through a couple of times on there. And the other place is YouTube, of course. My YouTube
Of course,
channel,
yeah. I've seen your videos. Yeah, right.
which has got videos dating back a ways.
I have a lot of it.
Oh, you're frozen.
Checking you out. So Nick, it's been a pleasure meeting you, and you've done some fantastic music over the years, and you've really delighted everybody. And I recommend everybody who has not heard this record to start off with Steve Hackett on that, because it's a gem, and you were part of it.
And I'm very, very pleased I was.
So anyway, have a nice day out there in the UK, and something new comes up, we can touch base again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
well,
pleasure meeting you.
Stay warm.
I'm trying. It's about 25 degrees Fahrenheit here today. A lot of wind, and it's a cold day.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put my onesie on now.
There you go. All right. So anyway, cheers and have a great day there.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, Dennis.
Thanks for doing this. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks a lot. Bye-bye.